On this episode of Scots Abroad, we talk to a Scottish international forward with almost 40 caps for the country. What becomes clear in this interview is not just a talented footballer, but the determination, the hunger, and the never say die attitude that is required to become a professional. Whether it be recovering from not one, but two serious injury setbacks in their young career, from going on to dominate Scottish football with Glasgow City, and then moving to the professional league in Sweden, where she's also had great success in silverware. Representing Scotland in Euro 2017, and also returning in France 2019 to play in the World Cup. This is Scots Abroad with John Walker, and this week's guest, Fiona Brown. Hello Fiona, thank you very much for joining us.
Hiya, no problem at all.
So how is recovery, or slash, I'm guessing it's the start of pre-season just now in Sweden?
Yeah, just the girls have just come back in for pre-season, so we're all back in. I'm obviously, like you said, rehabbing. So, no, it's gone really well. It's a slow process. It's one of those ones that you just have to put your trust in the physios and the experts and take it at the pace that they expect you to take it at. So it's been a lot of hard work, and seems like forever since I kicked the ball, but it's getting there. Yeah,
it was a wee bit untimely getting the injury just before the end of the season, but you are now the second guest on Scots Abroad, so if I keep Ziggy Gordon at right back and I'm going to play your right wing, that's at least my right side of the team sorted for now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Fiona, you're one of our features on Scots Abroad, which is part of our podcast, and it's more of just trying to get an idea of a player profile, because there will be a lot of listeners who, if they choose not to skip past the Scots Abroad part, because we do get listeners in England who might not really care about our Scots Abroad section, but it is a part I'm passionate about. It is just to give them an idea of a player profile, where you've come from, who you are, and just to get an idea of what kind of person you are, so that when I run through your highlights, it's not just me talking about some random person, it's someone they actually now know a bit about.
Sounds good.
So, growing up, you are from Dunblane, which, if I remember being such a small town, that would make you probably the most famous sports star from that town then.
I wish. No, I'm quite far down the line these days, but we do all right for a small town.
I don't know, you got to Scotland's first international tournament in 20 years. I think, does that not merit being above Jamie?
Nah, Jamie's underrated. He's won loads. Nah, the money boys are definitely, they're way up there ahead of me, but I'm just chuffed to be from the same place as them, to be fair.
Yeah, and for us, we're glad that whatever was in the water, you didn't end up in the tennis game, and you have made it in the football game.
Yeah, I played tennis when I was a kid. I loved it, actually.
Well,
it came to a point I had to choose between the two. So I think I made the right choice. I would never have made it in tennis.
Well, I don't know, because you just don't know. I guess from that is, at what age did you start getting into football then? Did you have an older siblings or younger siblings that were playing, or were your parents into football?
Weirdly enough, not at all. I've got a big brother who was really capable of any sort of sport, to be honest, but he just wasn't competitive at all. That used to infuriate me, because he would beat me at things and he wouldn't care. I'd be like, just gloat, just be horrible to me, But he was just, he's just so laid back. He just didn't really ever. He wasn't in it to win it. He was just kind of in it because he was enjoying himself. So, he wasn't really into football as such. And my dad was, he played rugby and squash, and my mum played tennis and golf. Both my parents played golf, so I was brought up in a really sporting family, but not particularly football minded. So it was actually an after school class run by the council that got me into football. I kind of participated in everything. I did athletics, gymnastics, all sorts, tennis, golf, squash, but football was one I just, quite cliche, but I just fell in love with it, and I just absolutely had a ball when I was getting to kick the ball around. So I did everything up to a certain age, and as I guess all kids have to do, I came to a point that my mum and dad were like, listen, we can't be taking you all these different places all the time. You're going to need to make a choice. And at that point, I obviously chose football.
I want to talk about one specific thing I've noticed, because I reckon I've watched every bit of footage possible on YouTube from yourself, or from Glasgow City, or from Rosengard, or Eskilstuna, or Scotland. At any point, I've watched every bit of footage I can find on you. There's one thing that's fascinated me about you. What footed are you,
God.
Fiona?
To be fair, I think that's one of my best strengths, really, is that I can use both feet. I am right-footed originally when I was a kid. When I was really young, actually, basically there was no teams to play with in Dunblane for girls. Back then, obviously, it's very different for opportunities for kids now, but back then there was not really any teams that a girl could play with. So I was lucky enough that a coach made up kind of a team, kind of for my benefit, to be fair, a local team. So we all played there, and I absolutely loved it. And then I remember one time we played on quite like a dodgy pitch sometimes, because obviously it was all voluntary, and like our parents had to cover the cost of getting a pitch and stuff. And it was iced off or something. I don't know what happened, and we had to train inside. It was the Queen Victoria School, actually, in Dunblane, and it was just a solid concrete floor games hall. And I remember I just went over a belter on my ankle, and I don't know, to be honest, how I didn't break it, but I really, really hurt my right foot, and it got to the point I could run, or probably shouldn't have been running, but I was about 8 and thought, I want to play, but I couldn't strike a ball with my foot, couldn't do it, so I wanted to play anyway, so I just used my left. So from a young age, I kind of used both feet. At that stage, obviously, I was still much weaker on my left then, but then when I joined Celtic's academy for the youth academy, I think it was under 15s, I joined it there. It was Paul Brownlee and Tina Ferguson brought me in, and then they were unbelievable. We were all 13, 14-year-old kids, but every single night of the week we were working on technique. We had technique drills to do when we were at home, like keep you up the challenges, just constantly on a ball for touches. And one night out of the week we had to put a big football sock over our good foot, and the entire session, 2 hours, every single week we weren't allowed to use that foot. So that really helped me, and I think I'm just lucky. It just came quite naturally to me to use my left foot, and to be honest now, I actually am probably more comfortable on my left than my right.
That explains something, because there's a quote in one of the papers, one of the stories about you in the lead up to the World Cup, and it might have been someone, it was either from Celtic or the active schools that took you, and they mentioned that you had a strong left foot, and that was that was the only bit I could find. So I've assumed, watching every clip, that you're left-footed, and I honestly, even to the point of you dribbling a couple of the goals where you fully dribble on the left coming in for the right, and there was nothing I could place, so I had to ask what you thought actually was your stronger foot to start with, but it does seem to be. And I did see you taking corners with your right foot, so I was like, I don't know if the article's wrong or she's just showing off.
To be fair, it depends on different things. Like there's certain things I've played on the left almost my entire career, and so it's just certain things like crossing wise. I'm so much better at crossing on my left foot, but it's just because I've probably done that more. So it's just it's different things, like the way I take the ball, or the touch to take the ball forward and things. It's just because I've played on that side so much, I probably do more things on my left foot more often. So it's probably just repetition, I guess.
Yeah, and you already mentioned, so it was Celtic that came and got you at 2009. Was there a reason it was Celtic? Was there other clubs involved?
Yeah, at that time I was only 14 or 13, I think, at that time, and I was playing at Stenhousemuir at that time. So basically the local team I was talking about earlier that had kind of been made up with loads of local kids, we all transferred to Stenhousemuir because they had a girls section, so we'd be supported and we'd be part of a bigger club, and it was just better for everyone. There was facilities, and it sounds really silly, but at that time it was small things, like they had training kit. We had never had that. Like the girls we played, we just turned up, and I would turn up in my full Celtic kit most weeks, or a Barca kit I'd got on holiday, Brazil kit, whatever. So like we didn't have that. So for us, I remember going there, and I remember going to get fitted for my first training kit, and I had FB on the front, and I was absolutely delighted. I was on the roof, and it was like, thinking back now, like kids get that from about 5 or 6 now. It's amazing. It's obviously so good to see, but I remember things like that were such a big deal to me when I was a kid. And yeah, so we'd moved there, and I'd actually got into the regional squad when I was playing at Stenhousemuir, which is actually something I'm quite chuffed about still to this day, because I think at that time, obviously Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, they all dominated in youth football, and so many of these regional players, Motherwell, all that kind of thing, they were all from these big clubs. So for me, it was quite a big deal for me to get in based off solely from merit from being a smaller club. Like, I mean, our team, we didn't do that well in the league. I think the best we ever did was come 3rd or 4th, which was a huge deal for us. Because obviously, like I said before, we weren't funded or anything like that. It was all voluntary, which maybe at that time so were the other teams, but they definitely had a lot more to offer than what we did. So for me, I was really chuffed that I actually made the regional squad, and I got into the under-15 Scotland camp while I was playing with Stenny, and then which was quite a big deal for Stenny as well at that time. And then from there, after we played at Torry Glen and we played against Wales, two games against Wales, and I remember at that time, my mum obviously not really been involved in football before or anything like that. She just came and watched her kids, you know what I mean? So she was just watching the games and stuff, and I think the Motherwell manager came up to her and was like, anytime she wants to come along for the trial, we'd love to have her. And I was like, oh, thanks very much. Like, she didn't really know what to say. And then I remember we had Scottish schools trials or something, and I came back from Scottish school trial, and I came into the kitchen, and Mum and Dad were kind of talking, and I actually don't remember this, but it's funny because my mum was actually talking about this conversation the other day. But basically, I had been at this trial, and that night Paul Brownlee had phoned, and they just got my house phone number from someone at the national team thing. Phoned my house, and my dad answered and said, listen, we really want her to come on to Celtic. And my dad was like, well, I need to discuss this with obviously my mum and see what happens. They had like a 15-year-old son as well, and my dad worked full time, my mum worked full time. We're in Dunblane, like it's not easy to get to Barrowfields 4 nights a week for the age of 13, 14, and I had school and stuff, so it was a lot to consider. But obviously at that time didn't consider it for 1 second. I was like, I want to go, I want to do it. Like, I was a Celtic fan since I was a kid, so for me it was the biggest thing ever. But then Glasgow City at that time were making a reserves team, and they were pulling in a lot of young players with potential, and it was Eddie Willecki Black that was setting that up. At that time he'd just gone into Glasgow City, I think, or he'd been there a wee while, and they wanted me to come. And he actually, to be fair to him, met my mum. He drove through to Stirling and met my mum, and I didn't know anything about this at the time until afterwards. But he met my mum, and mum was just saying, like, she's only young, like going and playing in senior football at this age and stuff, just asking the questions. And it turned out at that time there was a rule that I wouldn't have been able to play until I was 15. So at that time, like, I just wanted to play. So that kind of helped my decision, and I would have had to wait till my birthday to even be allowed to get match time, and I was still wee. I just needed to be kind of with people my age and playing and developing. So at that time Celtic was kind of the choice, but I had to go and play a game with them on the Sunday at Barrowfield. And I remember turning into Barrowfield and walking into the changing room and all the strips hanging up, and I just was blown away. I mean, I was happy to get training kit at Stenhousemuir, so you can imagine the facilities they had there was just, I just walked in and I was absolutely sold. I was sold already, but we played a friendly game, and I think I scored maybe 3 or 4 goals, and I had about 3 assists because I think I was just buzzing, full of adrenaline.
What age group is that you're going into Celtic at there then? If Glasgow City are a team setting up the reserves, what age group are you in at Celtic there?
15s, under 15s, my own age group.
So you're in your own age group, and it is once you hit 15, can you then go play for the senior Celtic side?
I could have.
So what?
Which I actually did, but I played a full season at under 15 first with the girls my age.
How did that season go?
Unbelievable, to be fair. I think we won every match. We won every cup, every match. We're undefeated the full season. I mean, that squad was unbelievable. At that time, the kids that were playing, everyone was kind of coming into the national setup, and everyone was playing well. Paul and Tina were unbelievable with us all. We used to, like I said, we were getting the technique training, we were learning tactically, we were in at Celtic Park, we played in cup finals, we were walking into the dressing room at cup finals. It was just like the small things, like Celtic quotes on the wall and our names and all that kind of stuff. They just went the extra mile for us all, and it paid off for sure. I remember we played Hibs under 17s who had won their league that year in a friendly, and we beat them 3-0. We were a good group. It was me, Chloe Arthur, Megan Cunningham, Holly Napier, Cara Wilkie, Lee Nichol. There was just like so many people that at that time were just brilliant, really, really, really good players. A lot of them actually, it's quite sad, a lot of them don't actually play anymore. But yeah, it was class. And then after that season, I think the managers at Celtic first team at that point they came to our cup final, Scottish Cup final at the end of the year, and I think I scored the winner in that game, and they pulled me out the locker room after the game, and they were just like, "Yeah, we want you to come to first team." And I was only 15 at that point, so it's quite a big deal. I remember they went up and spoke to my mum as well, and I just kind of got in the car. My mum just kind of looked at me and she's like, "You know what I'm going to say?" I was like, "Yeah," but I just remember the thing about Celtic was I turned up and it was the same every time I've moved club or every time I've taken a step. I've always just had that feeling inside that it's the right thing for me to do at that time. And at that time, I remember I was only young, but I just came back to the car after that trial game at Barrowfield, and Mum and Dad just turned round. I was just in the back seat, and I remember them both turning round in the car, and I just was like, everyone wants to be here, everyone wants to learn, everyone wants to get better. Like, this is what I want to be doing. Whereas sometimes I didn't feel that, and obviously where I had come from as well, everything was kind of like a community set up kind of thing. So some people were just there to have fun, and they were completely entitled to do that. But for me, I wanted to be a footballer, and I wanted to get better, and I knew that in that environment I would, because everyone was the same.
Yeah. So Celtic, after that final, Celtic have then spoke to you and said they want you to join the first team. Is that then? Are you waiting for the season to start and joining up at pre-season, or does their season run in parallel with the under-15s?
I think at that time it was the year that I think we started in January as well. I think that was the year that their season changed.
Yeah.
Or maybe the year after. I can't remember, but I remember I did pre-season with them, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And I remember we did these L runs with Robert Docherty at Barrowfield on the big grass pitches, the double pitch. It was like double pitch. We did these L runs, and he led them. And I don't know if you know Doc, but he is one of the fittest men I've ever met in my life. And we were all just chasing after him around Barrowfield. I thought, God, this is senior football, but that was good. And I was going into a team where there was a lot of internationalists and past internationalists, and I remember being absolutely petrified. And at that point it was quite funny because we trained at Barrowfield, but so did the youth team. So we had one half of the pitch and the youth teams had the other. And I remember just looking down and just seeing all my old team, because they'd all moved up to under 17s, like our entire team. So I remember just looking down and just seeing my old team all training together and just being like, right, it's okay. Like having to psych myself out, because obviously at that age, you're 15, you do long to be with your pals a bit, but I knew that obviously this was a good chance for me and stuff.
Yeah, I actually quite like that. I've been and watched a few teams train, obviously down in low leagues in Scotland, where it's obviously a semi-professional to amateur setup, whereby they do a lot of them have the under-21s on the other half of the pitch at the same time. And I've seen managers use it as a threat to their first team players. Yeah,
absolutely. I think as well, like it's good for the younger players. I remember when we were 15s, we were training there, and you'd look over and you'd see Joe Love scoring worldies, and like Gemma Fay pulling off saves, like different, like Christy Murray at that time was there. There was loads of them that were there, and you just look over and you just feel like when you were that age, that's exactly where you wanted to be. That was the be all and end all, to get up to that end of the pitch. We used to talk about that. If you're ever going to get to that end of the pitch, you need to work hard, blah blah blah.
So Gemma Fay is the Celtic goalkeeper at that time. That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Gemma Fay, Joe Love.
So Gemma Fay, who is Scotland's all-time leading caps appearances. That's like that as a youth player is someone. I mean that is inspiration enough, isn't it? That is where you want to get to. You want to get to the level you're working with someone day to day who is a full international and has played for a country. At that point, what, maybe 100 times already at that point? Yeah,
probably. Yeah, and you had Joe Love there as well, who's the second most capped. So yeah, it was a bit mad, to be honest.
So you've went through a pre-season with the Celtic team. What do you remember of the first time that you're getting on the pitch for Celtic in a competitive nature, the first team?
The first competitive game was one I would love to forget, because we played Glasgow City, the first game in the league that I'd played. I'd played loads of pre-season games and stuff, but I remember the first game in the league we played and we lost like 6-0 or something. And that was like kind of unheard of for Celtic. Like, I think they'd won the League Cup. I think they'd beaten Glasgow City in the Cup the year before.
Yeah, Celtic beat Glasgow City in the League Cup in 2010, I believe, because they seemed like and they were the runners up in the league, so they seemed like the closest challengers. I mean, I guess that's maybe a wee bit weird for people listening to this podcast in Scotland and being a wee bit unfamiliar with the fact that Glasgow City and that structure are the dominant team as it stands.
Yeah, they've dominated. I mean, they still do. They've dominated Scottish women's football for so many years. Well, it's 13 years that they've won the league now in a row. And to be honest, Glasgow City are the pioneers of women's football in Scotland. And I think every opportunity, or a lot of the opportunities, Anna Signol's done a lot. The national team, obviously now Shelley has done a lot. But for being such a consistent marker, Glasgow City is a big reason that all the kids these days have the opportunities they do. And I think maybe it goes sometimes unnoticed. But the work that club do, and obviously get on to later the fact that I was at that club, but the work that club do and the opportunities that they create for players is endless, and you just need to look at the players that have been through that system to kind of see that. But obviously, the work of Anna Signol, and obviously the national team continues to do that now with Shelley, but a lot, like all these people, even the players like Jo and Gemma and Julie Fleeton and all them, they are the reason that we now have the chance to do this as a job and go to these big tournaments, and they're the kind of pioneers of it all. So that's definitely it. If you look at the Scotland World Cup squad from France or the Euro 2017 squad, if you look at everyone's Wikipedia or the live score bio, there'll be a Glasgow City intersection at some point in the majority of those players. Majority, absolutely. Absolutely. So how did your first season go? How did you feel you fit in with the first team, playing professional football, playing full first team football at the age of 15, 16? Looking back now, I probably was out of my depth in terms of football wise. I always had a football brain, so in terms of that I was okay. Obviously just kind of naive in that kind of sense, and I was learning a lot and different ways to play and stuff, but it was more probably the biggest thing was the physical aspect. I was always very fast and fit, but I was only 15. Like, I hadn't really done my growing yet. I was a wee skinny thing. If you look at pictures now of me playing the first season at Celtic, I honestly look like a baby. I'm tiny. And I think that's the biggest thing probably that I think now would have been different. I think it would have been, you would have been tapered in now and built up before you could be straight into that level. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. See, at the time, I absolutely loved it, and I actually got game time as well. Obviously, the first wee while I had to build up and try and get into the team, and it was one of those things. It was a really good learning experience for me. At the time, I really didn't think it was fair, but now I look back and I think this was the best thing that actually ever happened, because you'd be playing well every week or whatever, and you'd be getting a wee chance, and then you'd be dropped out the team for an older player straight away. And that's just how it worked. And at the time, you're like, but what have I done? What have I done? Like, this isn't fair, because you're not used to that youth football, especially not in women's youth football. But then, like, you just had to learn. You just had to deal with it. And there was a few young ones in the team that it was the same for. We learned a lot of respect and stuff as well. Like, we had to take the kit and all that kind of stuff. And that was just like a given. Like, that wasn't anything you thought anything of. That was just yeah, of course. Like, of course I'll take the kit. So, yeah, like, it was really good. I remember we played like Liverpool in pre-season. We played like we went down there and played as well, I'm sure. But yeah, I remember the first year I really enjoyed myself, and I got a lot of game time, and I scored quite a lot of goals. I remember there was one thing that was myself and Megan Cunningham had both been moved up from 15 to the first team. We were the two that got moved up. And I remember because the year before with the 15s, we'd won like every tournament in the year, you then get to go to this thing called Tesco Cup, which is basically the best team of your age group in Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales all go down, and you play in a big stadium in England. And at that time it was Man City Stadium, so we were getting to play in the Etihad. You play a tournament over the 2 days, and you get you can win the Tesco Cup, which then at that time you can be the best under 15s team in the UK. And it was such a big deal, and it's stupid stuff again, like silly stuff, like we got to get our names in the back of our strips. Our strips said Celtic on them, but they also said Scotland on them, so it was like a different strip. The one thing that we said when we signed the first team was, please can we still go and play in that with our team? Yeah. And that was agreed. That was agreed at the time. And obviously at that time we didn't have contracts or anything like that, but that was agreed, like verbally. And then it came to the 2 training sessions before it, and the 15s coach Paul, he had came and been like, listen, can we have them for the training session, because they're going to miss your game on the Sunday anyway, so can we have them so we can do some shaping and stuff, because I want them to play. I remember me and Megan were just standing there at the pitch, and the coach turned around and said, "Nah, they're not going. We need them for Sunday." And we just kind of stood there and were like, "What?" But what can you do? Like that, it's not. Now I wouldn't think anything of it because I think it's pretty normal. Like, of course you couldn't go. And I remember on the Sunday, I think I played 10 minutes or something, and Megan didn't play. And I remember we were just both absolutely devastated, the two of us. We thought the world was against us. It was the most unfair thing in the world, blah, blah, blah. So, it's like typical 15-year-olds. But I think that was the only thing that I really thought, this is really unfair. But apart from that, I loved my first season. I just really enjoyed being around all these amazing players and learning from them. And they all looked after me really well as well, because I was a young upcoming player. So they kind of take you under your wing. And
you said something really interesting there. It was, because I know this is back in roughly 2010, 2011. You said about being 15, maybe not being physically ready to play. I have seen a lot. This seems to be a new thing coming through with the likes of your Jack Wilshere, Wayne Rooney. David Moyes and Arsene Wenger constantly said when they were 16, 17, they can't. I know everyone wants them to play and everyone thinks they're better than the players that are available. But if we play them too much now, all evidence points to shortened careers or injuries once they hit 24, 25, 26. And there was a wee bit of pressure. I mean, Wayne Rooney looked like a man when he came through. But if you do see a lot of players like Walcott, Wilshere, who were put in, Danny Welbeck, who were put in at 17, 18, it stood true when they've played too many games. And I guess this is a part where we maybe flash on to something that I think it's not defining you, but I think for anyone I'll share the video at some point, but whoever's seen the video of the second injury, in 2012, you suffer your first ACL injury at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Was that?
I think I was just 17 actually.
Just 17? Just
turned 17, yeah.
Was that in a game or was it in training?
It was in a game. It was up at Lennoxtown against Hibs.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I remember it really well, to be fair. I think that was my second season at first team. I'd kind of got myself right into the starting team. We were playing against Hibs and I was running to the line. Kirsty Smith was running with the ball actually down the wing, and I was there trusting myself because Kirsty's rapid and I was managing to keep up with her. And she was running like to the byline, and then she was like going to cut the ball back to the edge of the box. So I was running with her and I was like, just keep her outside, like that's what you're told if you're defending 1v1, like keep her outside, don't let her cut in. So I was fine, I was like, right, I've kept her outside. She cut the ball back and I literally, obviously I was running full pelt, but I literally just like went to change direction, but my foot got stuck in the turf, so my foot stayed like facing obviously the sideline of the pitch, and my full body and weight turned, and my knee turned, so it like pulled, like, it sounds disgusting, but it basically ripped my ACL apart because my full body weight was through it. So yeah, I just remember it was excruciating, and I just hit the deck and I was just screaming, and I remember actually I grabbed onto Kirsty's leg. I don't actually remember that, but I've been told that, and grabbed onto her leg and just was screaming. So I think everyone knew. Obviously, everyone else probably knew exactly what it was, and it was right before halftime. So I think they called halftime, but I remember just being told, like, even the Hibs players, everyone just was kind of sitting on the ground or walked away or whatever. Everyone was, obviously I was in visible pain and I was a young kid, and I think everyone kind of knew what was coming. So
yeah, how long does it take at that level to know the severity or physio? Because obviously I've done youth coaching myself. It's normally you and a first aider, so there maybe isn't.
At that time we were fairly lucky. At that time there was a physio at Celtic. So basically they took me inside and they can't really say anything. They were like, I think you need to go to the hospital, because I couldn't walk, because it turns out at that time it was ACL, it was meniscus, it was cartilage, it was basically everything that you could do. I had really bad bone bruising, I had damage to medial ligament, I had damage to lateral ligament, like everything that possible. And to be honest, it's that stuff that hurts more than the actual ACL. Well, the ACL hurts at the time, but afterwards and stuff, it's that stuff that really hurts more. I went to hospital and they were like, your knee's not broken. I was like, well, I think I know that, but okay. But it just took them a while to figure out exactly what I'd done because there was so much damage to the knee. I was then so lucky that at the academy we had such a good physio, Joanne McLean. She used to be Joanne Wilson, but she was working with the academy and she really just looked after me. And she was a national team physio at that time as well. And there was a few of us in the academy that had rehab at that time, and we used to go to her and she'd kill us, but my rehab was good and I was with people that had been through it or had been through similar. So Lauren McMurchie at that time, she was in the academy, so she literally was in the gym with me every day, and she had done her ACL too, so she was like, knew exactly how to do it and whatever. And I was only young, I was only 17, so I didn't really have a clue. Yeah, I was really fortunate to have the support around me and be in that position, but a lot of kids aren't.
Yeah. How long were you out for?
I think I was out 9 months from the surgery, which is probably quite decent considering the damage that was done. But 9 months until I got my first minutes again.
And so what season is that in? So is that 2013-14 you're in to now with Celtic?
No, that was 2000. I did it in 2012, so I was injured 2012 till the middle of 2013. Then I came back in the June of 2013 and played until the November in 2013.
How much game time are we getting into there, and how does the Glasgow City interest come about?
I was back, to be fair, over summer. I worked really hard. I remember I was in the gym pretty much every single day of summer, the summer break, and I came back after summer and was kind of ready to play. So they built me up quite a bit from there. I think I did do it in stages, but I was back to 90 minutes. I actually remember we played against Glasgow City at Glasgow Green, and that was my first 90 minutes back. And we played really well that game, and I think it took them until 75 minutes to score. And then we had a really, really good chance. Julie Fleeton was there at that point, and me and her linked up really, really well. And I remember there was one chance that I would have put my mortgage on her scoring. Sorry, Julie, but I mean, she scored about a million other goals. You wonder how the hell she did it, but yeah, like we had a really good chance in that game, but we lost eventually. And to be fair, since I moved to Celtic, obviously Eddie had tried to get me to go to the reserves when I went to Celtic 15. So he'd had contact then, and he tried the end of each season after that. So I think this was the third try. And I just said no every time. I was like, no, I want to develop more here. I think I can learn something here. I really fully believe that we can do something special. And we did have a really good group of players, and we did push them close. But when I came back from that injury, it just came to the point, a bit like at Stenhousemuir, I just knew I needed something different. I'd just come back and needed to really push on now. I needed to make up for lost time. And my dream was still kind of alive at that point. So I just really wanted to, my biggest aim was to go and play pro. And at that stage, you couldn't play pro in Scotland. So I knew I was going to need to get out of Scotland. But I just wanted a new challenge. I wanted to go and push myself. I really believed in what Glasgow City were doing. So I remember they phoned me, and it was actually the first time I actually spoke to Eddie myself on the phone. Every other time I just said no directly when the interest had come in. I remember speaking to him on the phone, and he was like, listen, I'm going to come and see you. And then I remember him and Laura Montgomery drove up to Dunblane and came to Mum and Dad's house. And we sat in the living room, because I was still quite young at that point anyway. So it was my mum and dad and them in the living room, and they were just showing me. Basically, they just talked through their future plans for the club. They talked through how they see me fitting into the team. Eddie spoke about what I need to develop. Like he wasn't beating around the bush. He told me what I wasn't good at, and he told me what I was good at. He had huge respect for me, and yeah, it was really good. And they showed me all the newspaper articles, and I remember going to watch them play Arsenal at Peter Till in the Champions League. And I remember standing there with my mum in the pouring rain, and the Champions League music came on, and they walked out, and I just kind of looked at her, and at that point, this was before the end of the season as well, and she just kind of looked at me, and I think she says now she knew at that point that she could see it in my eyes, the same thing as when Celtic called for me as well. Like, she just knew that it was time that I went, and that I knew that I'd wanted to do it and stuff. So they came to the house, and we just kind of spoke through everything, and I remember at the end of the meeting I was thinking, right, play it cool, like say that you'll have a think about it and you'll call them back. But in my head I'd already decided. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And because at that time I had a lot of really close friends at Celtic, and I was at that age still that I was really, really scared, because genuinely a big thing for me was being worried that what they would think, or if they would be angry with me, which is, now when I think about it, is so ridiculous. But at that age, that is how your brain works. Yeah, and my mum turned around and was like, "So where does she sign?" And I was like, "Mum, I'm trying to play it cool here, like, don't tell them yet." And she's like, "I mean, we all know you're going to sign." I was like, "Right, okay, well, that'll be my cover bone then." And I signed there and then.
Yeah. So you're joining Glasgow City, who are on 7 in a row, I believe, at the time. You're going in. Yep. It's a pretty impressive first season domestically. Clean sweep.
Yeah. The first season, 2014, was still to this day. 2014 is one of the best years of my life for football. I learned so much in that year. And I remember going in at the start and first couple of training sessions, Eddie gave me like 3 different pointers about how to do something differently. And I think it was like the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday session, and on the Friday we were playing a game, and it was indoors at Tory Glen. And I did exactly what he's been telling me all week. We can smash a rocket into the top corner. And I remember I'd never heard the end of it. He was the whole week. That's because I told her that. That's because I've been telling you that all week, like just winding us up. So yeah, it's always good. And Emily Thompson, she's a really close friend of mine. She was also there at that point. So we were training together, and it was just fun. I just was in an environment. I was like thriving on it. And then yeah, we did really well. I remember the first half of the year, just I think it's probably the most assists I've ever had in a season, and probably one of the best goal scoring seasons as well. I remember Eddie told me aside one day, and he said to me, "When you're on the wing and you get the ball to your feet, if there's 2 players against you, you take them line and you beat them in the line and whip it in. And if there's 1 player against you, you take it inside and you score." He was like, "If you turn back with the ball, you're getting some."
Yeah.
And that was pretty much like how he wanted me to play. We played really good football. I mean, the players in that team that year were frightening. Denise O'Sullivan, Sue Lappin, Joe Love. That's one of the best seasons I've ever seen Joe Love have from start to finish. Unbelievable. We had Ailish McSorley. We had, obviously, Leanne Ross is still there. Nick Dock. Susan Fairley was flying. I mean, there was just endless people that were just unbelievable.
And that's the first experience you have of European football then?
Yeah, we had actually hosted the group stage that year. We played the 3 games, and I remember the last game we had to win to qualify. And I scored my first Champions League goal, and I think I assisted the other 3. So I've just had one of those games, the same kind of feeling was the one that I had at Celtic when I first went there. It was just sheer adrenaline. I was just absolutely loving it, and obviously playing well. And I remember I had to do a press conference with Eddie after the game, and I had never done one before. I didn't have a clue what to do. And these journalists were asking me questions, and I was just so naive. I was just answering like I was, I don't know, like on the phone to my gran or something. Like, I don't know, but it definitely opened my eyes. And then from that stage after summer, because in that summer we had the European finals with under-19s as well, which was unbelievable. And then from the summer into that run into Christmas was I get goosebumps when I think about it. I watch the videos all the time of us qualifying for the last 8, the quarterfinals of Champions League and stuff. It's something I'll never forget.
I take it the Champions League is the highlight of that season then? Or is it winning the treble? Or is it all of it? Is it just an amazing first season?
Honestly, all of it. I think the treble was a big thing as well. And actually my first domestic silverware, full stop. So yeah, it was special. It was special. I scored in the cup final. That was quite special. But yeah, and then we won the league, and the Champions League was just insane. Just the way we did it. We came back, obviously, and I just remember that night when we qualified. It was a Thursday night, and obviously Airdrie, and we qualified, and they pulled me out of when we were all jumping around after the game. Live, BBC Live, what's it, 5 Live or something. They pulled me out after the game, and it was Jim Spence was interviewing me, and obviously again quite naive, young, and we were absolutely buzzing on life. They was just asking me how I felt, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we've just done that! I can't believe I was just screaming down the radio, and the poor people are trying to listen to it, and I'm screaming down the radio, talking nonsense. And my granny had she'd been watching it on at home, or no, she'd been listening to it on the radio at home, and obviously they did that interview at the end. She turned it off because I was screaming down the radio. But yeah, so it was just phenomenal. And obviously, the way we did it as well, I played well in that game, and the crowd was just, it was my first experience of really like the crowd being behind you and egging you on. And
yeah.
I remember I got absolutely halved at the halfway line in the middle of the match, and the crowd just went insane, honestly. And I got up and I honestly felt like every single person in that stadium had my back. It was really surreal, actually.
So that was Glasgow City's treble.
Yeah.
At that point, did you know, so you've talked about Eddie Willicke Black a few times here, so he's chased you pretty much since you were 14, 15 to join Glasgow City, whether it was the reserves or the first team. Did you know at that point that he was looking to leave Glasgow City, or did that come as a shock?
No, well, that was the next season. It was after we played obviously the quarterfinals, and we went into summer, and I mean, we've heard a few things. I don't know. Women's football's very, like, you hear a lot of stuff before, especially in, like when you're in Scotland, you hear a lot of stuff before it actually happens. And we'd heard a few rumours that he was looking for something else, or that he was leaving, or he'd been given an opportunity elsewhere and stuff. But you never really knew if it was true or what was true or whatever. And at that stage, I had just broken into the A squad, the national team, and obviously that's when I got injured the second time, was the May. He left in June, I think. So I had quite a lot going on anyway at that point in time, that I was a bit preoccupied elsewhere. So no, I didn't really know anything about it until it happened. And obviously there was not, from my side of things, Eddie was very good to me, really played a huge role in my career and developed me as a player. And I wished him all the best, and obviously off he went.
Yeah, you touched on that there. So for those listening to this that don't know much about your background, you go into the 2015 season, you start very strongly, you've adding goals to your game, big performances, double against Hibs in May, and then you're away in France with Scotland before France are preparing for the World Cup in 2015.
Yeah.
And this is, it's not too dissimilar. You're chasing the ball down the corner around the back of the right back, and you go over, and then it's your other knee this time.
Yeah, same thing. Other knee, pretty devastating.
Do you know this? Do you know this time, having had the experience of the pain? Did you know right away this time?
The weird thing was, it was painful, but I don't know. There's a video of it, and I've watched it back, and you can see in my face that I'm in pain at that point. But it's over after maybe 5 minutes of pain, because I'm still lying at the side. And I remember when the physios came round, and I said, "I've done it again." They were like, "Don't panic, you need to stay calm, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "I've done it again." And then I got up, and obviously the last time I had to get stretchered off, I couldn't move my knee, whatever. And I got up, and I thought, I actually remember being quite embarrassed, and I thought, this is the first team. Like, you're with the first team now. You're not crying. So I was trying not to cry, and I thought, you're walking off this pitch, you're walking to the change room. So I walked, and my knee just felt completely like it was made of jelly. And at that point, I thought it was that, and it's hard. Like, these people don't have X-ray eyes, and until you get a scan, you're never going to know. So obviously they were testing it, and your muscles kind of kick in and stuff like that to protect your knee. So when they tested it, it felt solid. They were pretty sure it wasn't. And obviously at that point, you're thinking, okay, well, I don't have swelling. It's so different from the last time. I don't have that much pain anymore, but it's unstable. So maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something, and you just kind of hope. So it's a bit like of a mind, your brain was just kind of going over and over again. And I remember taking a bag off. We went home. We flew home the next day. I remember coming back to my room actually after the game, and there was honestly about 60 missed calls from people on my phone, because the game had been broadcast live, so everyone at home had seen it. And I just remember thinking, my poor mum. And I thought, my mum is going to be tearing her hair out, because obviously your parents lived through all of this with you. I remember we flew home the next day, and obviously I hadn't slept at all. I had that horrible feeling in my stomach, and I think I probably knew deep down that that's what it was, but I wanted to believe it wasn't. I mean, my knee was giving way left, right and centre. I was going to do something, and my knee was giving way, and I was thinking, this is not right. Because
you're now a Scottish international, you're now playing with the best team in Scotland. Are you still going private? So this has still been backed up by the SFA?
The difference was this time, the the difference was that this time I was actually playing with Scotland when it happened, which means you're automatically covered via insurance anyway. Whereas the first time the game that I did it, I actually was playing for my club team. But because I was a National Academy player, I was covered.
Yeah, I can't believe we're actually like looking at this and saying you were lucky just because of the circumstance in which you had two ACLs.
Absolutely. And obviously, I mean, times change now. I'm sure all players are getting supported now, and it'd be a different story. But at that time, if you're going to get injured, you always were hoping it would be with national teams so that you would actually get treated. It was good, and my scan was really quick. Went in for the scan, and I remember the doctor just phoned me. I'm sitting in my kitchen. We had a cup final on the Wednesday. I think this was a Monday. Obviously, at that time, I remember Eddie wasn't happy. He wasn't happy at all because obviously we'd played France, and this was quite late on in the game, and we'd been running without touching the ball, to be honest. But obviously, I mean, in hindsight, everyone was going to have an opinion, it could be prevented, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, if it didn't happen then, it could have happened another time. It's not, you can't really think like that.
Yeah.
Certainly don't think like that. But the doctor phoned me. I mean, it's funny, we always joke about this, but the doctor at that time, he obviously worked in the resus in the hospital. So, I mean, the things he sees all the time is crazy. And us having a sore knee is not really a big deal. I remember he just phoned me and he was like, "Hi, pal." And I was like, "Hi, how are you?" He's like, "Aye, so that's my knee gone as well. You'll need surgery." I thought, I mean, actually, do you know something? That was the best thing that ever happened, because it put it in perspective for me. I thought, you know what? Like, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. But I thought, at the same time, I was like, right, don't be a drama about this. So I had my cry, obviously was terrified to tell Eddie. Nah, I wasn't really. I knew he would support me and stuff, but you never want to tell your coach that you're injured, and at that time I was a big player and for the club at that moment in time. So I would have loved to play in the cup final, and I was on a good run, I was playing well, so I really, really hopefully would have done well in the cup final. But yeah, so that was that, and luckily enough I got surgery, I think 10 days later. This surgery was a lot smoother because obviously it was just ACL. There was no other damage to me, just ACL. So the recovery was much faster, much smoother.
And
again, I was supported.
Yeah, there is a video that Glasgow City had done of your kind of comeback, I guess, to it. It was more a question around the rehab. I seen on the video that you were saying that you were in and around the training ground when people were there, even if you weren't able to train, I guess just to wind people up or have a laugh. Is that was that of your own accord, or was that encouraged? Just because Arsene Wenger introduced something at Arsenal, and I don't know if he's pioneered or taken it from someone else. It's just from watching Arsenal TV that I got it, which was he encouraged players who were injured to be in the gym at the same time players who were fit were doing their gym time, just because of the psychological benefits of being around the team and not being felt like, I know in the olden days, maybe in the 90s, if you were injured, and you were away for the playing squad, you were doing your own recovery. Was that encouraged from Glasgow City?
Well, obviously when I got injured at that point, there was a transition period anyway for City because Scott came in, Scott Booth. So we had a new manager. And I remember going to training to meet him, and I was still on my crutches, and straight away he was really nice. He was like, "Listen, you come back from this. I've heard so many good things about you. I'm really, really excited to play, like to work with you and see you play. Just do what you need to do, and if there's anything we can do." Because I was at the academy still at that time. So I was doing my rehab I was actually doing my rehab at Hampton with Frank Gilroy, who's the knee specialist, and he actually, together with the surgeon, Dr. Colin Walker, who fixed my knee, actually wrote the protocol for ACL rehab, so I was in the best possible hands. So I was in there, so a lot of my rehab was based there, but as soon as I was allowed to do pitch-based stuff, I made sure that I did that training for that reason. And before that, I would always be training in the morning, but I still went to training every night of the week. I think for me, it really, really benefits of me being around the girls, messing around, just to be honest, being annoying. Like, I was just annoying to everyone. I just would, I don't know, throw people, or one night I just went and moved everyone's cars around the car park, stole their keys, and just moved where they parked their cars. They all came out and was like, "My car's gone." And I remember actually Scott being absolutely livid because he had brought his wife's Porsche to training, I didn't move it because I was actually traumatised, and I was thinking, I can't afford to fix this. But he said, did you touch the Porsche? I said, no. But yeah, just like stuff like that, and it's just good for me for my mental state, and obviously play team sport for a reason, and I enjoy being in a team and around the team, and if I was away and I was isolated for that, I'd be going out of my mind. So I was alone for a lot of the rehab, like in the gym and stuff, so to be around them was like such a relief for me, really.
Yeah, it was something I noticed in a couple of the articles and just watching the video, was you mentioned, I think, that you were perhaps told that you might not be able to go and play pro because you wouldn't be able to train 4 nights a week after coming back from this, just because it'd been your second ACL. But you did talk about Claire Rafferty, who was at Chelsea at the time, who had managed to rack up 3 ACL injuries, but played at that summer's World Cup. So you've at least got like vision and someone you can actually look at and go, no, this is still the aim. And the mental strength just feels unbelievable to have your second one at the age of before you're even 23, 24, and still come back with a view that you're going to make it as a pro. It's quite exceptional, because I guess with the fact that at that point you're trying to get back to a team who aren't professional just now. Like I know plenty of people that have stopped playing for similar injuries because it has just been I guess not necessarily a hobby, but there was no contract at the end of it. You weren't getting paid for what you were doing, but the vision's very important. And I guess in the 2016, so you've done your rehab, and you know you're getting back on this pitch. I do really like this. So Glasgow City is it 12 now at the time?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it was a cup game. I think we were playing a team maybe like 3 divisions below us or something. Yeah,
and you said in the video on the build up that it would definitely take you 3, 4, 5 games to get your touch back, and I think I've counted it was maybe 2 touches till you're touched. There was a 1 touch left round somebody with your right and then curled right in at the top corner.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a team celebrate a 13th goal so much. Every player, and then if you're watching the video, the goalie ends up on top of you as well. But I think that's one time that you let it go. I've seen people go, you shouldn't celebrate at 13-0, but I think there's mitigating circumstances where it's acceptable.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was a special moment for me for sure, and people can say, obviously, 13th goal wasn't a good opposition, they're right, but for me, that ball hitting the back of the net was huge, and just everything at that moment in time had been worth it. Everything. I was back, and that was the moment I'd lived for. That was the moment I'd worked for all this time, and to get it so soon after coming back was incredible. But like you said about, like, obviously the team celebrating, the team genuinely, before I went on, 3 of the girls came off that they'd been subbed off, and obviously I was out warming up. I was only allowed 10 minutes and or 15 minutes, and obviously they were just saying, like, they were obviously just being amazing and just being like, we're so proud of you, like, you've done so well, like, just go out there and enjoy it. And one of the girls, Hayley Lauder, she's like, see, if you score, you better be coming to me. And Leanne Ross is the same, so that's why I ran over them, because obviously I was like, I can't believe they just scored, so I ran over to them. But genuinely, I think every single person in that team that day genuinely felt what it meant, and I think that came from the fact that I'd been at training. As soon as I was allowed to run, like I was saying, that I did my running at training. So there were some nights they were playing with the ball, kicking the ball around, and I was literally for 2 hours running up and down the side of the pitch. They saw the work that I put in. They saw, obviously, when I was just coming back, I was allowed to do certain stuff but not the others. The first day I was allowed to do a passing drill. They were all like, they just made a deal of it, and they made it like special. And it's frustrating when you're coming back because you can't do the things you used to do as well as what you did, and that's the worst part. When you think you're back, but you're not. It takes time, and I think they got it, and they were amazing. Honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them for sure, and I was really lucky in terms of them being of that mindset. I have to say as well, Big Nick, who is Nicola Docherty's dad, he helped at City at that time, and he came to training every night of the week and worked with me once I could do my running. I'm obviously good friends with Nick anyway, so he knew me, but he really honestly took the time out of his week. He didn't need to be there, like, but he used to come and he would just set out my markers and he would time all my runs, all my sprints that I had to do. And he'd write them all down and he'd say, right, the aim for next time, blah, blah, blah. And he just gave me small targets. And see, the fact that I wasn't working by myself, I was working with him, was unbelievable for me. And he had such pride in like what I was doing as well, which made me feel like, okay, I'm doing it for him as well, kind of thing. So, yeah, I've told Big Nick that so many times, that he played a huge part in my rehab. And as soon as I came off the pitch that day, I went over to him and he had a tear in his eye. So, yeah, it was nice. He's a really, really good guy, and I don't think he realises how massive a part he played for me as well. But yeah, so stuff like that is just, that's what you get in a team like Glasgow City, that family feeling. Yeah. Unbelievable.
And you end up winning the title that year as well?
Yeah, we did. I think that was 10 in a row, actually. It was amazing. Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
That was 10 in a row, yeah. So, yeah, that was class. That was just special. I mean, that was part of history. That's the first team to do it, which obviously, like you said before, men's football, women's football, whatever, like in Scotland, there's no other team has done it. Obviously, Celtic are chasing it now. Rangers were close before, but we did it first. So that's something that can't be taken away ever.
So you've come back from your injury, you're back in the team, you've won the league. At what point, you've got this dream to turn pro, and at this point Scotland in the women's game is not turning professional. Yeah. At what point do you know the interest from Eskilstuna? Is this from this is from the Champions League game against Glasgow City?
Yeah, so we played Eskilstuna in Champions League that October, September, can't remember what one.
And how long after the game have they tried to take you on the plane instantly, or have they at least waited to the end of the season?
Nah, they were very respectful, and they phoned me in November actually. So the season was done. They did everything the right way, and it's funny because I was actually on holiday. I was in Mexico, so there was a lot of time difference as well. So trying to get a chat with the manager at that time there was tricky, but. Yeah, I just spoke to him, and at that point my mindset was the same again. I just knew it was the right thing, and I had the feeling kind of in my heart that this is what I needed. And I'd personally gone through like quite a tough time at that stage. My gran died in November, and we were really close, and it was just hadn't been the best time. And I thought, do you know what, this is actually exactly what I needed at this period of time, and I just knew that I wanted to do it. And like you said before, I'd been told so many times that I was never going to do this. I was never going to turn pro, and I thought, I'm not done yet, and I want to give it a try. So I did. So I obviously waited till I was home to Mexico to make the final decision, and spoke to the guy, spoke to Anna Signol, who was the manager of Scotland at the time, and just kind of said, what do you reckon? And spoke to Scott face to face. I felt like the club had done such a huge amount for me, supported me back from my injury, and spoke to Scott face to face because I felt like that's what he deserved. And everyone was so supportive. I have to say, I never got really any negativity for it, and I think they all felt I was ready to go. And
the thing that I've always been interested in, because this is why you qualify for these interviews, is because you are a Scot playing abroad. Do you speak to anyone who you know? So you've got Jane Ross is out there at that point, I believe, or has been out there. You've got Ellis McSorley, who's the same, and then you've got your manager Scott Booth, who's played in Germany, played in Holland. Do you seek out people, or is it very much a drive for yourself that you're going, no, I want to play professionally?
Of course. I think I'd spoken to people previously, like before. Like I remember speaking to Lisa Evans at one point before when she was in Germany, and she's been like, "How is it? Like how's the life?" And she was just saying how living in a different culture really just taught her so much about life as well, and developed her as a person. And she absolutely loved it out there. So I'd spoken to people in the past about it, and it's hard because the likes like Jane or Lashy or Hayley was also out in Malbacken, and Lee Alexander did a year there. It's a very, very different experience to be out in the six like that than to be in the city in Malmo where I am, where it's a big city. So I didn't so much speak to them, but I just spoke to people about, do you think this is a good move for me? Or I spoke to my big cousin who's quite football minded. I spoke to obviously my mum and dad. But I knew that I wanted to do it, and my mindset at that point was, if it doesn't work out, then I've tried. And for me, I've always kind of been, since a young age, I've obviously had the injury, and I've always fought back from it, and I don't want it to define me. I remember at one point, all I was known as in the press was the girl that did 2 ACLs instead of actually what I was achieving on the pitch, and it used to infuriate me. It used to honestly infuriate me, which obviously was an age thing too. Now I'm quite proud of the fact that I've done what I've done regardless of the injuries, so I don't mind it now. But I thought, I've got something to prove here and I want to go and do it. And over there, it's a fresh start. Nobody knows. Nobody even needs to know. Obviously, the coach knew because they signed me. But see, when I went into that team, I didn't need to be that, if you come back from ACL, they didn't know. Nobody knew. And I remember two of my close friends here now, actually, we still play together. I think they didn't know for 6 months that I'd had the ACL injury before. I didn't want it to define me, and this was a chance to go and play in a professional environment, but as a fresh start kind of thing.
Yeah, so we've spoken to Ziggy Gordon about this as well, and Ziggy Gordon has moved to Poland and now moved to Australia, and he's done it differently in both times. Did you move with someone to Sweden? How are the club? Have the club set up somewhere for you to move into instantly? Have you already looked for a place? What is the situation when you arrive there? Are you arriving there flat out? They're putting you in a flat. You're on your own, and you need to learn the language. Where are you at when you join Eskilstuna?
So basically, it's really good here. To be fair, your accommodation provided. That was part of my contract. I'm lucky in terms of in Sweden, everyone has such brilliant English. Honestly, yeah. I've learned so much about the English language since I've been here, because in Scotland we are taught terrible grammar. I say things sometimes, and some of my friends are like, "That's wrong. Why do you say it like that?" I'm like, right, okay, well that's how we say it in Scotland, okay.
I've met the Hammarby sports scientist on my UEFA B licence, and that was one of the first questions I asked him before doing this interview was, before I ask about her Swedish, how is the English in Sweden? And he said if she's in Malmo, she'll be fine. She probably hasn't learned Swedish. So on that subject, have you learned Swedish? Are you in the process?
Yeah, I have. No, I can speak Swedish.
So is it a sense of you can get through your day, or you speak fluently Swedish?
Basically fluent. Obviously, there's a few things that I struggle with, like the grammar and stuff like that, but they understand everything I'm saying. Our training in Swedish and stuff.
Yes.
But actually, now there's a few people that speak English in the team, so sometimes now it's in English, but when I moved, it was in Swedish. More so since I moved to Malmo, actually, but in Eskilstuna, it was probably a lot of English, but no, for me, that was one thing I wanted. I wanted to learn the language. I know that I can get away with speaking English there. I didn't want to. If I'm going to live in a different country, I want to be able to speak their language. So, yeah, I wanted to do that, and I'm really chuffed that I have been able to. Yeah,
that's excellent. That's excellent. So that I think Ziggy did say he struggled a lot with Polish in what he didn't have.
Yeah, I think that's a different level.
Yeah, and he didn't have
the
facilitation. It was all the sessions were Polish. Most of the players and coaches didn't speak English, so it was.
See, that's it. Like, that's the thing. Like, even though I wanted to learn Swedish, until I did, there was the comfort blanket there of if I said things wrong, or if I wasn't scared to try, because I could always switch to English and they would understand.
Is the coaching different when you arrive on your first day?
I'd say now, obviously when I was in Eskilstuna, I was there for a first year, but here in Malmo now, the coach is unbelievable, Jonas Edebal. So he worked at Helsingborg, he's been in the men's game, he's been at Rosengard before. So he's very experienced, even though he's quite young. But his mind is just football. The way he wants us to play is just right up my street, very possession based, but quick attacking play. It's really tactical, I would say, technical. A lot more technical than I maybe gave credit for before I moved. And obviously, naturally, over here, everyone is so fit and strong. So, that's kind of a given, obviously, similar to Poland. The fitness and the strength and stuff is kind of a given. But, yeah, our training is very technical and tactical based and very high intense. We train at a level and a tempo that's pretty high, probably the highest environment I've been in.
And I mean, in your first season in Sweden, you have a very good season. I think 4 goals, 22 games, a lot of assists. From what I've seen, you pretty much took over the corners pretty early. You did league debut against Hammarby, where you scored the goal. The highlights of that season, where did you finish? Finished second, third in the league?
Third, I think we finished with Eskilstuna.
And what was the biggest difference in competition playing against other teams that you noticed from leaving Scotland to play in Sweden?
I think 100% the biggest difference was obviously the tempo was a bit different, but it was more the fact that every single game was a very tight game and you had to turn up every single game. There was no easy game. Top could lose points from like mid-table teams quite easily. Like that season, the people that came first and second, we beat them both. The other games that were tight. So that's the biggest thing for me. The consistency levels need to be a lot higher. Yeah, I mean, I loved my first season. I was obviously playing wing back, so at that point, the way we played wing back there, it was quite defensive at times. So to get my 4 goals, I was quite chuffed with. Would obviously like more, but yeah, it was good. It was a really good first season. Obviously, as you said, I was really happy with the number of assists I got, and I played well. So the same thing happened at the end of that season when I obviously got offered from Rosengard. I knew that it was like it was a big opportunity, and they had a lot of history and their success. And if you look at the number of players that are playing in the top clubs in the world now, they've come from, a lot of them have played at this club. And yeah, I just knew that it was the right move, and I could go and push on. And the players that were there, I thought, you know what, to play in the same team as them, I can only learn.
There's a bit of a recurring theme, I guess, here, is that you talked about when you were leaving Celtic, although Eddie Walecki Black was very aware of you, you had a good game against Celtic just before you joined Glasgow City, then you're playing for Glasgow City in the Champions League against Eskilstuna, and then they take you, and then I'm guessing your first season with Eskilstuna, you've impressed Rosengard, who at the time were the most successful team in Swedish football, and then they've picked you up as well. So it seems to be like you're going for the perfect job interviews every time you play against a team.
Yeah, I guess so. It's been just my luck, I guess. No, like it's been quite a whirlwind of a journey, and it just seems to have happened, really. And I know it hasn't. It's been a lot of hard work and stuff. That my mum says that all the time. She's like, it's just happened, and it's just, you've just got to hold on tight and see where it goes. So it's kind of what I've been doing. But no, the move to Rosengard, obviously, I made some unbelievable friendships in Eskilstuna, and I was lucky enough that actually 2 of the girls also now play for Rosengard. I mean, now in the team in Rosengard, there's some people in this team that I know that I'll be friends with for life. It goes beyond football, and I'm surrounded by good people. But yeah, the first year, obviously, for me playing at Rosengard was bittersweet. Obviously, the result at the end of the season really, it destroyed me. I was absolutely heartbroken, but it was probably one of the best footballing seasons of my career.
Yeah, so in your first season at Rosengard, you hit the ground running, I guess. It was a hat-trick at the cup competition you later went on to win.
Yeah, we won the cup. So, yeah, it was good. It was obviously, that was my first professional piece of silverware as well. So the cup was quite special for me. In Sweden, it's weird. The cup's not such a big deal. The league is what matters. The league is the be-all and end-all. Whereas, it's funny, one of my closest friends in the team is Icelandic, and she is the same. She's like, I don't get how the cup doesn't matter here. The cup's so big at home. And I was like, well, it's the same for us. Like, if you win the Scottish Cup, it's the best. So, yeah, so we won the cup, which was a big deal. And obviously the big thing was to win the league. And unfortunately, I remember in summer we'd had a tough time with injuries. We'd had players leaving. We had like quite a depleted squad for the second half of the season. I remember at that point I was playing wing back, but in Rosengard, the way the wing back play is a lot more attacking than what we did in Eskilstuna, so I was much more involved in the attacking play. I was up and down the pitch, and I have to say the second half of last season, I was absolutely loving it. I was playing really well. I was having assists. I was scoring goals. I was becoming a really big player for the team, and that was really important to me. And then we had 10 cup finals. We had to win basically 10 games, and we would win the league. And I think we lost one in the middle, but other results kind of saved us at that point. So we were still in it, and it got to the final game. And it was the last game of the season against Gothenburg away. And it was in November. I think it was just the end of October. And it was absolutely Baltic. I've never been colder. It was pouring rain. I kid you not. I mean, the second half especially, we absolutely wiped the floor with them. We absolutely destroyed them. but we couldn't score. And they scored two goals in the first half that were, one was a cross, and the second one, I mean, it was a good finish, but it was our own mistakes. And the first half we just weren't good enough, and then the second half we absolutely wiped the floor with them. And I just remember thinking, this is it, like, we need to win today. There was nothing in my brain that could comprehend that we weren't going to win that game. And I think there was maybe 2 or 3 crosses I put in that we hit the post, we hit the bars, we hit the post again. The keeper had to, honestly, I would have probably given the keeper the Ballon d'Or for that performance. The keeper saved them so many times. As you can tell, this was over a year ago. I'm still not over it.
What I was going to say there was, you touched on it a bit there about playing in massive stadiums. Is that a big draw? Is that something? Because I know with Glasgow City's complete wiping the floor with all competition in Scotland as it stands, even with the, I guess, Champions League games, you're probably looking at a couple of hundred. And I have noticed on big games in the last 2 seasons at Rosengard, you have had crowds of 3,500, 4,000 at the stadium. Is that the biggest thing that stands out for yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, the crowds are bigger for sure. We're quite lucky. When we won the league there this year, the stadium was full. It was packed. You can see from the pictures, people can't move in the stands, and that was amazing. That was the best thing in the world, is to play in front of all these people, and that's obviously what we experienced at the World Cup when we played PSG with Glasgow. It was just unbelievable, and that's what you dream of, and that's what the guys get and probably don't realise how lucky they are, because I say it all the time, I don't know how anyone cannot perform in those kind of atmospheres, but just because we're not used to it. But yeah, definitely, I mean, the crowds are bigger, but I do think that the crowds at home are on the rise. I think the game as a whole at home is on the rise.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So you mentioned 2018 you won the Cup, 2018 you just missed out in the league, but 2019 season, you were champions. You've just mentioned that this season past. How frustrating was the injury in the run-in then? Because you've came back from the World Cup, you've been performing, and then you get is it a knee injury, twisted knee?
Yeah, basically, I mean, the first half of last year, I probably was at my optimal level. I felt good. I felt like finally I'd actually found my niche in that position, and I knew exactly how to play it to my strength. Yeah, so I mean, it's always the same when you're feeling the best. That's when an injury happens. So yeah, I think it was frustrating. I had a bit of a niggle before the World Cup, and then he just started to get a bit swollen up and down, which was obviously really frustrating at that time, because that's when you wanted to be at your optimal.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to manage it until the end of the season, because I could. And I thought, I'm not going to miss games if I can prevent it. And at that point, I thought it'd be a quick fix to the end of the season. I would maybe miss a few weeks of the off season, like training, but that's fine, and then be ready to go. So that was the plan. And then in training, it's just a situation in training, just like a clumsy tackle, kind of, completely unintentional. Basically, my knee what happened was the bones, my top leg bone and bottom leg bone smashed together. But that's exactly what it felt like, and I can't really describe it in any other way. And obviously that knee is the first knee that I damaged, so that was 8 years ago from my first injury. And yeah, I mean, I was always going to have wear and tear, but what had happened was the cartilage in between my knee, like the bones in my leg, had completely gone, so my bones had been rubbing together, which is obviously not ideal. So that's why I've been getting the irritation, and the surgeon kind of basically just said it in black and white, and we need to operate because you can't walk at the moment. So yeah, so we did obviously the operation, and I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and act the hero. It's been brutal, and it's continuing to be tough, and I think as a professional sports person, any injury is really mentally demanding, and I've always kind of not breezed through, but I've always worked to the standard that if I do X, Y, and Z, it'll be fine, and I will come back and I'll be absolutely grand. So I will do X, Y, and Z, and I just put my mind to something and I do it. And obviously with ACL, I knew what I was doing the second time, unfortunately. So this time, obviously, it's different. You can't really work like that. You have to see how your knee reacts, and when it's cartilage and stuff like that, it's tough. So yeah, they've obviously done the surgery, and my knee's reacted really well to it, and I'm working really hard. Obviously, this will probably be the hardest rehab I've ever had to do, both physically and mentally, but I'm pretty positive and in a good mindset, and yeah, like, I just long for the day to be kicking a ball again, to be honest.
Have they said how long they think you're going to be out for just now? Do they have a plan? Like, where are you at in the rehab now?
Well, actually today started to run, so that's major step in the right direction. Didn't have any pain and can start running a little bit. Not a proper run, but I mean it's just above a walk, but it's running and I'll take it. But yeah, so that's a major step. Obviously, like I was saying, that's the kind of frustrating thing. They can't say, oh, you'll be done by this amount of time, you'll be ready by this time, because it is a lot of how money reacts. But going how it's been going, money's been reacting really well to every step we've taken. So my hope is that it just keeps reacting well and it'll be pretty quick from now. But I don't really know an exact time schedule, unfortunately.
We're being completely selfish at this podcast in the fact that we want to be able to cover games, and unfortunately to Rosengard, if you're not playing, we just brush past the result very quickly. One of the questions that I'm wanting to ask every guest that's going to do these interviews is, why do you think that so few players in football from Scotland specifically do tend to go abroad, out with maybe the usual draw of America, where it's, I know you're saying Sweden does have a very good base of English and it's spoken every day. Do you think people are resistant to go to countries where they maybe need to learn the language? And you've touched on it there about the Scottish game just now slightly improving. There's been announcements with Rangers and Celtic of turning professional at the women's game. Do you think if the professionalism and the contracts and the money had been there with Glasgow City, or the availability at Celtic or Rangers to make a living, that you would have maybe not looked abroad? Or was it something that you always wanted to try? For
me personally, I think I always did want to go abroad at some point, just because I wanted to live in a different culture and I wanted to see how it would be and that kind of thing. But I think a lot of players would have stayed if that had been the case then, and I think the league would have been a better standard, which it's exciting now that is happening, because I think the league will become better and better. I don't know really why not many players leave. I think maybe it's like a homely aspect. Obviously in Scotland, I think we're all quite family orientated, and I don't know, maybe that's a kind of like judgment, but a lot of people, everyone that I kind of know is really quite family orientated, and maybe it's something to do with that, or
yeah, possibly.
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, it's just always been something of interest, because it does seem to be like it's something that's happening a bit more now with Ziggy Gordon, Ryan Gauld, Jack Harper's, or Liam Henderson, the David Bates going to Hamburg. There are examples of people doing it. Rachel Corsie out in America for a while now. I do think Scotland now, especially where they've been with under Shirley Kerr, with the Euros, the World Cup, Rangers and Celtic turning pro, there is a real chance to get players. And I was just curious if there was an opportunity. I remember when America restructured the women's league over there, they done a big drive to get all the professionals that were over in Germany, were over in Sweden, back into their game, because they felt that was going to draw the crowds, with having the World Cup winners from 2015 in the league was going to raise the attendances. And I was just wondering if maybe Scotland were going to try and cash in the fact that there is a real good feel factor around the Scotland national team just now, having been at the Euros and the World Cup. Sorry, I do agree. I think, maybe, I don't know. I don't think at this stage they can say that everyone would need to come back. I don't think at this stage it would be, I don't think it would work. But maybe in time that could be a thing when the league's at that level. I think as well, for the people not moving away, it's maybe just the fear of the unknown as well, because not that many people have done it. So it's maybe not the definite, okay, it's going to be good kind of thing. And I'm not claiming that these podcasts are going to become artefacts for this and it's going to offer any sort of guidance, but that is exactly what we wanted to get out of the interviews of the, hopefully we get all the players to come on and do an hour and a half interview where we can discuss it. But this was the idea, was that there would be less of an unknown if there was hours of interviews with players who have went abroad and tried it, because that was the thing that Ziggy Gordon did say. There was Barry Douglas had been in Poznan, Ryan Gauld had just moved. There was people he could talk to, and Tony Watts out in Sofia. So there is now people, but they can only really talk in amongst themselves. I know there's a young Scottish boy, Liam Morrison, who's went out to Bayern Munich from Celtic. So there are people who I guess are willing to try it. And I think they're similar to yourselves. I mean, I've worked abroad in my line of work, and I do think it is really important to experience different cultures and get out there.
I think that's absolutely true. There's so much you can learn about yourself. I mean, there's people I've met that will be part of my life forever. I would never ever have met otherwise.
Now, the whole basis of this is players playing abroad, but we do want to focus on the fact that it should be players that are representing Scotland. 39 caps at the age of 24, considering 2 ACLs, is, I guess, nothing short of spectacular. How does it feel? How did it feel getting that first call up? I get to play against Northern Ireland. And do you actually remember where you were?
I don't remember where I was when I got the call up, because you didn't get a call or anything then. It just came out on an email or it came out online. And that was the first you knew about it. You maybe knew about it 10 minutes before.
Right, okay.
So I remember it being on BBC News, and I was at Hampden, and they were saying how young players had been given a chance. Then, like, I just started getting texts, like, congratulations. Like, I think there was quite a lot of injuries. To be fair, it was right after the Champions League run-in with Glasgow City in 2014. So it was in the first camp after that. So myself, Chloe Arthur, Megan Cunningham, Heather Richards, we were all pulled in. And I remember I was just absolutely delighted. I was absolutely buzzing. Obviously, I'd come back from an injury, and I just was really, really happy to. Obviously, that's my dream. Like when I was a kid, to play for Scotland, to get a cap for my country. So yeah, it was amazing. And then when we got over there, I remember just being exactly the same again. I sound like I've broken the record, but just so buzzing and so happy to be there that it was probably adrenaline. But I remember playing really well in training. I scored a left-footed volley in training. I remember texting my mum after the training. I was like, I scored a volley. And then I ended up actually getting a start. I started against Northern Ireland, and I think at that time Kirsty Smith started behind me, and I think it was her first start as well. She'd had caps though, but maybe not a start. And then Kim Little was playing, and I mean, I was playing with these players that I'd just looked up to for so long. Jane Ross was playing. There was just so many, and yeah, we played and we won. I think 4-0. I think,
yes.
And I played really well. So yeah, it was a big, huge moment for me, and huge moment for my family. Even though obviously they couldn't see the game because it was in Northern Ireland, but yeah, it was amazing and something I'll never forget.
And from there on in, you're kind of in and around the squad, building up to the Euro 2017 qualification, which we do qualify just second place behind Iceland, and then you get the draw. You find out, England are England the first or second draw in the group
for the Euros.
Yes.
First, I think. Second.
Do you remember when you realise that you've got England, or is it more? I guess the women's game has become more highlighted and more in the media now than it was maybe 2 years ago. Because now I remember it being a big deal when it got drawn out. I remember seeing the draw when Scotland got drawn with England for the World Cup in 2019.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I think, to be honest, well, when I first got into the national team, obviously I broke into the national team, played 7 games, got 7 caps, and had finally started to start a few games, and then I did my second knee. So I had missed the qualification. I think I played 1 qualification game, or Kate was in the squad for 1 qualification game, which was the one after we'd actually qualified. So I had been injured for the Euros, for the qualification. So then when we got the draw for that, for me it was like, oh God, I was like, at that time I didn't let myself get too excited about it, because at that time I really wanted to make sure I was getting myself back into the squad again. So I'd missed a year and a half of national team football. I
guess in that Euros 2017, we'll just ignore entirely the England game, because I think that was one of the first games I watched. But Scotland, although we didn't qualify for the knockout stages, there was a very high point. You did win 1-0. You played the last 30 minutes of the game. I guess, I mean, that was Scotland's first win at a major tournament in 21 years. It was the first time they'd been to a major tournament in 19 years. It shouldn't be underlooked just because, I guess, the game that it was involved in. But I mean, that's huge, and I think from that point on, there was a feel around, because I know the game started to be shown on BBC Alba, the attendances went up, whether it was at Falkirk or New Love Street. There was a definite feeling going into the World Cup 2019 qualifiers that Scotland were going to get to the World Cup. Was that something that was spoken around the camp?
Not really. I think everyone was quite aware of the buzz. I think after the Euros, everything changed. I think Scotland as a whole changed. And obviously, Shelley then came in as well, so there was a whole fresh face around it as well. And I think just the attitude to women's football completely took a different angle, and people were interested, and like little girls kind of caught the bug. And yeah, I definitely noticed a big change, especially because I was living away, so every time I was home I was seeing kind of drastic changes. And just the coverage, like you said, on Twitter, on BBC Alba and all that. So it was a lot better, and I think it's just grown, and the World Cup's 100% just boosted that. So qualification for the World Cup was just, we knew we were capable, and that it was about performing to our level and defying the odds.
Yeah, the 2019 qualifiers, like I won't pretend to have watched women's football all my life, but the 2019 qualifiers from about summer of 2018 onwards, that was when I really started to notice the women's game, because being on Twitter, I think it's one of the things, and for anyone who follows me on Twitter, they will know that I'm heavily critical of the SFA and some of the stuff they do with promoting the national team and ticketing, but the one thing they do very well is promote the women's game on a consistent basis. It is, you always know when and where to watch the women's football, which I think it's a massive thing. And even on that, so in June of 2018, that would have been, I was doing my B licence and you guys were training. You were in camp for the Belarus game. So you would have been training at the Orium, and this is the first time that I found out who Fiona Brown was in more of a detailed level, was because we all had a task at that game, which was to analyse a player, and I was given the pleasure of doing Claire Emsley, who's the left winger for Scotland, and she's out in Melbourne just now, but she got injured at half time, and you replaced her.
Stadium?
Yes, you replaced her, and I still have my one note, which was, lovely run, very direct, great assist. It was a very good. Was the Belarus game.
Yeah, I remember that game. I remember it came on at half time. I think it was just, we'd obviously had all the ball, but it was just one of those games. They'd scored a wonder goal and then just sat in.
Yeah, it was a goal at absolutely nothing from just outside the area and off the top of the crossbar.
Yeah, and we'd spoken about it as well, that they'll shoot from anywhere. And I remember in the first half watching it, and she took it and I was like, that's in, and it just hit the back of the net, and we were all kind of stunned. Yeah, I just remember it was frantic, and we were kind of just launching. We needed to score, so we were kind of just like smashing balls into the box and stuff, and we just were kind of being a bit frantic instead of keeping the ball. And I think that was Shelley's biggest thing. She said at half time, and then she said specifically to me when I was coming on. So thank God Erin scored from the cutback, or I'd have been getting it.
So from that campaign, you've qualified for the World Cup. I'm assuming your highlight is your first goal for the national side.
Yeah, from the qualification probably. It was obviously apart from qualifying, but it was a special moment. I'd waited quite a while for it, and it was nice.
It's a decent half volley. For anyone who's not seen it, they can go watch it. It's the goal against Albania in a 5-0 win. It's the kind of goal you want to open your account from. And also, there is a clip on YouTube that is just Fiona Brown, all assists and goals. It's definitely missing some assists, but some of the goals...
Yeah, it's missing... It basically was made last summer. I signed with my agent, and obviously their media team do some stuff like that. So it was made last summer. And then obviously the second half of last year and the first half of this year, I probably had my best assists and goals that I've scored and was flying. So I'll need to get them to update.
And we've talked about it. So the draw, you've got England again at the World Cup. This is the one that I think has, I guess it's changed the women's game a fair bit now, was because the exposure at France 2019 was immense. You could feel that it was positive, and again, I have to praise the SFA moving the Jamaica send-off to the national stadium. That was the right respect that I think the national team deserved for what they'd achieved. We have had a real disappointment in the national team with the men's game, that I think the right thing to do was actually treat the women's game with the same respect, in the way that America do, France do, Sweden do, Germany do, where it's not necessarily treated in any different way whatsoever. And I think it was about 14,000 that attended the game. Very well attended.
It was 18,000.
See, I've even undersold it. How was that as an occasion? I know you didn't actually get on the pitch, because I'm guessing you spoke about it with your knee injury being up and down. What was that like as an occasion, though, to be there, being in the squad, the matchday squad for a Hampden International?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It was something you dream of as a kid, walking out at Hampden. So it's obviously frustrating. My knee was still a bit swollen, and Shelley spoke to me after the match, and it was the right thing to do, 100%. And I mean, if I'd been fit, you never know, I might still not played, but you never know. But it was nice when she spoke to me, and she just said, don't overthink it, and used to still be very proud of this occasion and stuff. So that was really nice to hear, and it was an amazing occasion. I loved it every single second, and it was crazy. We all walked out together, and it was really special. It was a big deal for women's football, and the perfect send-off for us going to France.
And then the first game's against England, which unfortunately we lose 2-1. But it was a very close game in the last 20 minutes. So Claire Elmsley becomes the first Scottish player to score at a national tournament since Craig Burley against Norway. So it's a 21-year wait for a World Cup goal for Scotland. So that's huge for us. Yeah. I guess the biggest disappointment was probably the Japan game, in that I felt like the second half, I think you came on with Lana Cleland around about the same time, and it was constant pressure. Lana Cleland scores an absolute screamer from outside the box.
Yeah.
Cuthbert hit the post. There was a couple of the half chances near the end.
I think we had 2 penalty shouts as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But, it was just, I think that would have been a huge result if we'd done that, and I think we deserved to do it. Things just seemed to go against us.
And because of the structure and the way it was the best third place team could still get in out of the 8 groups. You could still get 3 teams through. So really, we were watching the scores come in. We were watching the Argentina game. Scotland go 3-0 up. All you really need to do, as per the other results have happened so far, all the other third place teams, you've got basically, because they've all got massive negative goal differences. So even if they catch you on 3 points, Scotland just have to win. What's that like sitting on I've never played anywhere near your level, Fiona, but I've been games where I've been an attacking player and it's went 3-1, 3-2, and I don't have the professional mindset, but you kind of look around and go, I don't really want to come on now. I'm an attacking player. This to me, but at the same time, you want to be on the pitch in a World Cup game. How does that feel?
I think it was. I definitely wanted to go on, but I think I was warming up at like 60 minutes or something, and warming up, getting ready to come on, and then obviously the situation kind of changed, so we held off, and it was just one of those. I mean, I still can't really comprehend what happened in that game. Like, what happened? It was, we were cruising, and then obviously we lost, and we didn't lose, but felt like we lost.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things. We obviously ourselves should have done better to not concede, but at the same time we weren't helped out by obviously the VAR decision. But
that's a really frustrating one, because anyone listening to this who don't know what we're talking about, there was a rule change in the summer, so it happened on the 1st of June, just as this tournament was starting, but it wouldn't have been in effect. It is now, and people will be aware of it now, which is VAR is being used for encroachment on penalties, but it is not meant to be used for the goalkeeper. And that's meant to be the referee and lines person's job, is to ensure that the goalkeeper doesn't leave the line. So the penalty's been saved, it goes out for a throw-in, and then VAR reviews something which it shouldn't have reviewed, gives a retake which is then scored, and that pretty much kills it. So what I want to know, because this could be a very different answer, what are your thoughts on VAR on the whole? Is it used in the Swedish Women's League?
No, it's not used in the Women's League here. I don't actually know if any women's leagues are using it yet. I know obviously internationals, but I don't think any leagues are. I mean, obviously we've not had a very good experience with it at the World Cup. We were punished with it in most games. I think the concept is good. I've watched quite a fair bit of rugby with my dad, because he's quite a rugby guy, and I think the way that the video analysis and refereeing is used in rugby is excellent, and it's quick and it's efficient and it's good. I think the concept of VAR is good, but I don't think at the World Cup especially it was used
the application at the World
in
Cup
the right way.
Yeah, the application at the World Cup, for people who watch English football, it's been used well in English football in comparison. The application of it at the World Cup in France was very, very poor. But it's just interesting because Ziggy Gordon's had it when he's been at Poland, and now he's got it in Australia, and he thinks he's the first professional I've really heard in any interview praise it to the point where he actually said everything's just fair. He's like, if a referee tells me that he's reviewed something and it's a foul or it's a penalty, I'm just going to trust and go, right, well, that's obviously what it is then. And I
think the concept is good. I think the concept of it is really good. The fact that if it was used properly, but I don't think it has been used, and I don't think that enough referees have used it efficiently enough. And I actually think at some points now it's getting overused. It's to the point that referees are not having to make any sort of decisions or take any responsibility, and I think that's where it's a problem, because it's meant to assist the referee, not replace them.
Exactly, it's meant, and it has. I do think that's, but I think that's something that's been happening. I see it even in Scotland with rule changes, is that referees are becoming quite robotic in the sense that the rules are dictating exactly where common sense used to be applied. That it no longer is. It's black and white in every situation, whereby not every situation is the same. There can be games that are more heated than others, whereby you maybe have to let something go that you normally wouldn't.
Exactly, you have to read the game, and the same as players. And I'm quite happy without it here, to be honest.
Where do you see your future then? So you're currently doing your rehab, so that's got to be your immediate goal right now. Is, like you said, you're back running now. I know you said you can't really set a time on it, but is there something personally that you want to hit?
I think, I'm under no illusion. Obviously, the injury was not a great injury, and with the trauma my knees have been through previously, it's probably a little bit harder for me. But the rehab is going well, and my biggest thing for the moment is to actually just get back on the pitch and play football and feel pain free again.
Yeah.
I feel like I've not had a good session of football pain free for a long time, and for me, that's the biggest thing, obviously, after having this injury, and just to stay in a positive mindset and keep fighting away. And I'm in a very good environment for that. The girls are so supportive. It's a bit like Glasgow City, where they really care and they really, really are like on my side and cheering me on at every opportunity. They genuinely want me to be back and want me to do well, and it's a really nice feeling. I think the hardest thing with being injured is that you go from being a very important player, or you feel you're a very important player or a very important part of a team, to physically not being able to. And I think for me, the biggest adaptation I've made recently is that of realising that I can still be a huge part and huge importance to the team, even though I'm physically not able to do that. So I'm just going to try and keep doing that. And listen, Scotland means the world to me, and playing for my country is the biggest honour that you can get. And one day, if I can get that Scotland strip back on and get back on that pitch, that will mean everything to me. At one point in time, if that can happen, that would be unbelievable. And I don't want to obviously set time marks on that, because if the time comes and I can get a chance to do that at any point in time, I will be there. So yeah, for me, just to get back on the pitch, to get back playing, and help my team here, obviously first and foremost, and then hopefully get back to the national team. It's a very competitive environment, and the team is so strong now with so many good players to take from the pool of players that's available. So I don't think it'll be an easy job to get that place back, but hopefully one day at one point in time I'll get back there, and that would be the dream.
Yeah, we're the same. I think everything that we've spoke about, the thing that has stood out the most in all the stuff I've read about you is the willingness, or maybe stubborn isn't the right word, but the stubbornness to not take the no for the answer and accept that it will get better, you will get back, you will be back playing. And for us, it'll be a very, very happy moment for the podcast where we can refer to you as having minutes on the pitch for Rosengard, and hopefully then on our time we can come watch you playing for Scotland. Fiona, this has been a really insightful interview on a totally different side of football. Finding out about the women's game from start to finish, your injuries, Scotland, being at the World Cup, playing at Hampden. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate that.
Not a problem. Thanks very much for listening to me harp on.
Scots Abroad is written and produced by John Walker and Gary Black.